Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Alfred Hitchcock's Saboteur in 1942. Now, this is another Hitchcock review. I haven't done one for about, maybe 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks, since Lifeboat, which I really was disappointed with. And it was a shame about Lifeboat. But all the other Hitchcocks that I've reviewed on this channel, I've absolutely loved. And here we are with another film from this collection. The Masterpiece Collection. And yes, Saboteur. It's not a one that's talked about too much, but here it is. It's the first one in the collection, and I love this collection as well. It's just a stunning bit set. And yeah, I was kind of looking forward to this one. With all Hitchcocks, I look forward to. But it's not the most acclaimed one. It's kind of middle acclaim, Hitchcock acclaim. It's kind of it's not regarded that highly, but it's not panned or anything. But yes, I was actually really surprised by this one. It's very unexpected, classic Hitchcock really. And I kind of got, for the most part, was invested in everything that happened. It was just a stunning film, just put together wonderfully for the most part. We'll get to that, but it just, it's got a sense of charm, adventure. I think it's really tense, throughout most of the film, and characters again, great characters, and kind of, it's got, I would say it's got one of the most, again, complex Hitchcock plots. As always though, Hitchcock, the plots are not that important, but sometimes they use MacGuffins and stuff. But yes, it is more complex than something like Rear Window or something. But it's, for the most part, it's thoroughly engaging, and it's just a thrill ride, adventure film, and of course a romance as well. And it's come out in 1942, so it's in between some better films than this, I would say. Rebecca in 1940, and then of course after this film you've got ones like Notorious, Rope. I wouldn't say this is top tier Hitchcock, but I would say it's a classic film, and very underrated. And if you've not seen it, you have to check it out, of course. So the film, it's Robert Cummings who plays Barry Kane, and of course Priscilla Lane, who plays Pat Martin. That's the kind of main two characters of the film. You've also got Fry, the character of Fry, played by Norman Lloyd, I think it was, and he was great in the film as well. But it's Robert Cummings is the main character. He plays the main character, and basically the very opening scenes, he kind of works in this factory, and a fire gets started, and he gives one of these guys what he thinks is a fire extinguisher, and basically the whole place goes up, and the guy dies as well. It doesn't work, and then basically soon after that, this character Barry is accused of actually killing the guy, and of course, a classic Hitchcock kind of setup, where the wrong man is accused. He would use this kind of scenario, in quite a lot of his films, but they never really, of all the ones I've seen anyway, in that sense, in this, with this scenario, it never got repetitive at all. They were always very unique, even though they had kind of a similar sort of, some of them had a similar sort of setup, and it was a man on the run, accused wrongly, and has to kind of clear his name, kind of thing. And this is kind of that, but it's very as well. It's got this kind of complex plot, this spy ring that kind of is woven into it, and other things, different things going on as well, in the background, and it just progresses wonderfully. The first half of the film, I would say, is pretty much flawless. I didn't really have any issues with the film. I absolutely adored it. It's kind of, it's said to be kind of a cross country sort of film. You're going across the countryside, and kind of on the run, and going encountering different places and stuff, cabins and stuff. And this is where the film is for sure at its best. When these two, when the two characters, especially when they're on the run together, this character of Pat and of course Barry, when they're on the run together, and they're trying to escape the law, and they're just going to these different locations trying to hide out. That is when the film is at its absolute best. Absolutely adored it, and I still absolutely love the film. But we'll get into the flaws soon. But yes, the performances were great. I think this character of Barry is a great protagonist. Just really, really well written. Not quite, he's not like kind of everyday good guy then to be in it. He's kind of a bit of a rebel in the film, you could say, and he doesn't. He has kind of an attitude to him, which is very interesting. It's a great performance, and I think it's just I just rooted for this character throughout the film, and just wanted him to kind of clear his name because of course just wrongly accused and that, and it's well written characters for sure, and the romance I loved in this film, and I thought this character of Pat was great as well. It didn't you should just fall into his arms straight away. She kind of had a bit of friction at first, and I loved how that romance developed throughout the film. And then all the side characters, the people he meets along the way, even before he meets this character Pat, very, very memorable. It's just brilliant. I feel it's one of them films where adventure film where there's these small little contained scenes, and they're always really memorable, and they add something. They drive to the narrative. I really loved that. And it's very, very warm. Especially the early on encounters. Just great, especially the blind man, of course, which has a direct kind of link to the character of Pat in this film, and that's the kind of thing that kickstarts many things. But it's just really, really warm and touching, actually. I loved that. Was one of my favourite scenes, that encounter in the cabin. Just very, very peaceful, nostalgic, and I loved that character, and I loved that scene. It was very, very touching. And as well, there's a scene with this travelling, people as well, where they kind of let them hide in the kind of trucks. That was a stunning scene, which could have been done, quite badly, but luckily it wasn't. It was great. I loved that scene, with all the different characters. And once we get to around the hour mark, maybe a couple of things here and there, start to slowly kind of decline, in terms of my enjoyment of the film, because up until then it was flawless for me, and basically there's a couple of things here and there that were kind of it just wasn't quite as personal, wasn't quite as engaging, and when they kind of split up these two main characters, that wasn't quite compelling. But there was a great scene, as well at the party. The final act is the thing that I would deduct a couple of scores off, marks. Up until then, I didn't quite like it as much on these, after the hour mark. But I wouldn't have actually deducted marks off because it was still a film I loved, well and truly. The final act, it's much more, it's in the city as well, which it doesn't have the charm that the rest of the film does. It doesn't have the kind of the adventurous sort of spirit that it has, and I think things slightly, they could have been a bit better in that final act. I feel that there was a bit too much. I just think the final act could have been done a bit better. And there was some weird edits I did not like, actually. There was an explosion, which was great. The build-up was great when he pushed the button. And the explosion and stuff, and then there was some really, really I think it was just Hitchcock experiment with the edits when after the explosion happened. Very just you see it when you know what I mean when you see it. It was a bit weird. I guess it was just an experimentation with them cuts that didn't quite work for me. The actual final as well. One bit in the final act, the final set piece. It could have been done better as well, a bit disappointing. But the actual overall set piece, on the Statue of Liberty was amazing. It was stunning. Tense up until that moment, and so well built up, and the stakes was, really high. But then that final, was a bit disappointing. And the ending, I feel, was a bit too much of a cut-off, on this occasion. I did think could have been a bit more fulfilling, and wrapped things up better. You know, of course, the MacGuffin's fine, but the actual kind of relationship that, that other relationship wasn't fully wrapped up enough for me. And it's fine sometimes, but I feel, it wasn't a massive flaw, but I feel that I would have liked it to be more satisfying and kind of just wrapped things up better. It was, but yeah, the actual ended sequence was overall great. It's just some bits, as I say, some bits in that final act here and there that don't quite work as well as they should, and it just doesn't quite come together perfectly like you would expect from the rest of this film. Is really quite flawless. Absolutely loved it. Overall still. It's just it's a shame that the final act didn't quite deliver on the level that I would have expected. There's a lot of action in this film at the final act, and it just kind of loses that sense of the characters in a relationship and the actual, that magic that was in the rest of the film. And I definitely prefer the first half, but I still, overall love the film. But for that reason, I couldn't quite call this a masterpiece. However, it's still a classic film. It's a great film. I think it's, it's going to be one among Hitchcock's better films for me. It's not top tier Hitchcock, but I do feel it's a stunning film and really, really unexpected from me. I didn't expect it to be great based on the acclaim. I did hold out that it could be like A Trouble with Harry, where it is. But just something about it just didn't, make me think it would be like that. I just, the way people describe it. But yes, I think I'd have to give this film a 98%. Great film, no doubt. I absolutely loved it. I adored most of the film. This is really just the final act that did let it down a bit, as I say. Here and there, a couple of bits, and some of the edits, in that final act was a bit, it just didn't work for me at all. I would also mention it's not a flaw because, sometimes, of course, directors don't have fully, input in this, but the title sequence was pretty bad, purely because I could not see the text at all. It was really, really poor choice of, design there. And that's something maybe you pick up on that. Let me know, because that was something I was quite surprised at. Because usually the title sequences on Hitchcock films, especially, some of them around the 40s and that weren't quite on form, but the 50s and 60s was some of the best title sequences in film. And this one was very, very shoddy. I couldn't actually see the text really, apart from like Alfred Hitchcock at the end, because that was bigger print and stuff. But yeah, that was strange. But as I say, this is really a flawless film till the final act, and I still think it's a great film. Near masterpiece, but I just don't quite think it comes together enough, well enough for me to call it a masterpiece. But a stunning film, thoroughly engaging throughout most of the film. Great cinematography. I love the locations, especially in the first half. And the first hour really is just kind of perfect for me. I love the characters. I love the romance. I love the plot. Very bit more complex for a Hitchcock film, but I love the plot. Very, very compelling, and great atmosphere as well. A sense of dread at times, but that adventure feel that this film has, and the romance and everything. And it just the way, again, it's another fully tense film really, for the most part, by Hitchcock, of course. You expect no less for the most part of his films. Love this film. Highly recommend it. Just not quite top tier Hitchcock, and not quite a masterpiece from me, but very, very close. So yeah, thanks for watching my review. And there'll probably be a lot more Hitchcock stuff to come now again. Just had a slight break after Lifeboat. Maybe not intentional, just I suppose a downer on that film. Yeah, I didn't like that film at all, Lifeboat. But yeah, this is another great film from Hitchcock, and definitely recommend it. So thanks for watching my review of Hitchcock's Saboteur.